Hello, my name is Ariel Lynch, and thank you for joining our refresher course on importing notes into Lockstep. Today, I will walk you through the entire import process, demonstrating how to ensure your notes are correctly formatted and easily accessible. Come along as we discover tips and tricks to maximize your efficiency while using Lockstep for note management. The Lockstep imports are user-friendly Excel templates created to help collectors streamline updating new notes for their accounts by allowing the collector to attach detailed notes to multiple invoices at one time. It's very important that you're importing your notes into Lockstep on a regular basis. Any status updates you're receiving from your customer or that you have from your own research while you're working on your accounts should be imported into Lockstep. So that would be customer disputes, promise to pays, paperwork requests, reasons why your customer is short paying, or a reason why the customer will not be paying that invoice. All those notes should be on your statement, and from your statement, you can easily import those notes into Lockstep. Any invoice over 90 days should have notes providing details as to why that balance is still open. Keep in mind that when there are issues between agents, customers, and your supervisor wants to know what's going on, the first place they're going to look is into Lockstep. And they're looking to see, is there a detailed note as to why this balance is still open and past due? Is there a note explaining why the customer has short paid these charges? Is there a note explaining why there's a credit on that account? So any notes that you have on your customer statement should be imported to Lockstep on a regular basis. That way everyone can see what's going on with that account and they don't have to stop you in the middle of the day while you're working on something else to get an update. Importing your notes into Lockstep is a fairly easy process. Once you're logged into Lockstep, you'll navigate to the left-hand side of your screen and click Admin. From there, a drop-down menu will open. Select Settings and Utilities, and then Import. Once you click Import, your page will change to what you see here in this second screenshot. From there, you'll select your file, open it, and click Import. And don't worry, we're going to walk through this process together a few times in this video, so you'll see it live. If there's an error with one invoice on the import, the entire import will fail. Lockstep will flag the invoice and provide a reason for the failure. Once you make corrections on your spreadsheet, you can resubmit the import into Lockstep. Below is an example of a failed import. Please note that when you're selecting your file, if your import button does not turn purple and it stays gray, that is a key sign that your import has failed. If you scroll down, you'll see a list of invoices that were on your import sheet and there'll be a status that says failed. Once you click the drop down arrow by the company ID, Lockstep will provide a reason for that failure. In this case below, they said the invoice was not found, which is typical because I did make up that pro number just so I could show you guys a failed import. So if your pro number does not match a pro number on your customer's account, that import will fail. If you have a typo in your pro number, your import will also fail. That would be the same as having a typo in your customer ID, or maybe you did not match the right company ID with your bill to code. That import will also fail. So if it's a West account, your company ID will need to be WST, or Lockstep will not allow you to upload those notes. There are two different templates you could use to import your customers' notes into Lockstep. The simple import works best for large accounts. Because large accounts do not receive automated emails for statements, invoices coming due, or past due notifications, the simple import works best to transfer your customer notes. Whereas with the complex import sheet, it's very similar to the simple, but it allows you to tag a little more details onto your notes when uploading, such as creating follow-up dates and marking invoices as disputed. So we are going to use the simple import sheet to transfer our customer notes from our statement into Lockstep. The simple import sheet works best for this customer's account because they are a large account who pays on time and typically pays their invoices in full. We don't have to worry about marking anything as disputed or setting up any follow up dates for a customer. So that's why the simple import sheet works just fine, is because we're just simply uploading a promise to pay note. And since this is a large account in Lockstep, they're not getting those auto generated emails telling them that they have past due invoices or invoice coming up due. So we don't need to use the complex import to use the dispute code for expected pay. We could simply just use the simple import sheet. That way, if anyone from management or any other collectors get this count in the upcoming days, they can come in and see that these invoices are promised to pay. So what we're going to do is start by copying all of the pros listed here that are marked as promise to pay. So we're going to click the first pro on the list, and I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut so that I can copy all of the pros listed here without having to drag down or type them individually. So we're going to press and hold Control Shift and then press the down arrow. This has now selected all the pros listed. We can right click, copy, and then we can go over to our simple import sheet and paste those pros into our invoice list. So we're going to click in the first box, right click, and paste values only. So that is the second paste option that says 1, 2, 3. So now we have our list of pros transferred to our simple import sheet. Now we can go back and copy our customer's notes. And I'll use the same shortcut again, which is holding down Control Shift at the same time and pressing the down arrow. I'm going to right click and copy our customer's notes. And then we'll right click and paste values only. So now we have our list of pros and our customer's note transferred to our simple import sheet. We can start filling out the remaining information. So our first column is asking for the company ID. This is where we would say whether this is an Evans account or a West customer. And this happens to be a West customer, so we'll use WST. If this were an Evans account, we would use EVA. Next, customer ID is asking what is the customer's bill to code. Type that here. Our next column is the activity date. Always make your activity date for the day that you're creating this activity or uploading your import sheet. So today is 11/4. So that is going to be our activity date. Next is our task description. The task description is the activity issue. What activity issue are we creating here? Is this an account note? Is this a disputed charge, a short pay, a customer deduction, missing paperwork? The task description is the one box that you can freestyle and make it your own. So I always recommend staying consistent with the task descriptions that you use. So that way, when you go into Lockstep and you're filtering out your activity issues, it's easy for you to keep track if you're staying consistent. For instance, you don't want to start using invoice short paid today, and then Friday you're making another import for this customer, and now you're putting short paid invoice. So now when you're going to try to filter out those short paid notes, you have to do two different filters because you're using two different task descriptions. And so since Lockstep is where you're making your notes, make it easy for you to find, but also make it easy for management or other members of your team If they came to your account, they can understand what your activity description is. So for this case, we know this is a customer's promise to pay. So that is what I will use as my task description. And since this is the same customer, same account, same task description and activity, I'm going to go ahead and drag all this information down for each column since it's all the same. And to easily do so, I'm going to click this small square that you can see in the bottom right hand corner. If you double click that box, it will populate the information for you. So I will do that for customer ID and the task description as well, since all of this has the same note, same tag, same customer account. And I did skip the activity date on purpose. If you come here and you double click on that small box, you'll see it'll change the dates, and the dates will just continue on. And next thing you know, by the time we get to the end, our activity now is projected for December 17th. We don't want that. We want all of our activities to be for 11/4. So what I will do is copy that activity date, click in this blank box. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and then press the down arrow. So I can select all of these empty rows and right click and paste the values only. So now we have the correct date for each pro on this list. And since there are no other comments from my customer on this statement, I'm going to go ahead and save this so I can upload it into Lockstep. Excuse me. I always recommend saving your file on your PC, whether it's in your documents or your desktop. For me, it's easier to find it and pull it and upload it because once it successfully imports into Lockstep, you no longer need this file, so you can delete it. I always try to make sure I use the date in the file name so that way I know which files I uploaded today. If I were doing it just for one customer, you can also put their build to code into your file name and include the date. That way you can keep a better record because if you have a lot of these as you're going on, you don't want to mix them up or import something that you've already put into Lockstep. Because please note, any note that you upload into Lockstep cannot be deleted. It's there forever. So once we have our file type, we want to make sure, I'm sorry, once we have our file name, we want to make sure that our file type is saved as a CSV. This is the only file type that the Lockstep import will recognize. So always make sure this is your file type. If you have downloaded a blank copy from the Lockstep group chat or from the collections training folder on the share drive, that file type should automatically be saved, but just always double check. So we have our file name, our file type is correct. We can go ahead and save. And since I was practicing this earlier, this it's just asking if I want to replace it, and I do. So I'm clicking OK. So now that we have it saved, we can go over to Lockstep and import. So once you're logged into Lockstep, you want to navigate to the left-hand side of your screen and come all the way down to Admin and click. Next, you'll click Settings and Utilities, and last, Import. If this is your first time importing, or if you just haven't thought about it, I would always recommend to go ahead and save this page as a favorite. That way it'll be under your favorites tab and you won't have to go the long way to get to it each time. To save this as a favorite, if you come up to the top page in the left, you'll see this star. If you click the star, it will add this page to your favorites tab. So once the star is gold, you'll be able to access this page quickly from your favorites tab. So now we're ready to import. So we're going to go ahead and select our file. So we'll click select. It was saved in documents. I'm already there. So we'll scroll down and click our file that we saved and open. Then you'll see here all of the invoices that you listed on your import sheet from your customer statement would be listed here. And the status says validated. And you can also see that our import buttons turned from gray to purple. Once you select and open your file, if that import button turns purple, everything listed below here is validated and good to upload. If Lockstep would have found an error with any of those invoices, the import button would have stayed grayed out. If one invoice has an error, the entire sheet is thrown out and it will not upload until you correct that one error. But in this case, everything was validated, there were no errors. Our import button turned purple, so that means we're good to go to import this to our customer's account. So we'll select import. From here, we get a notification that says we'll be alerted once this is complete. And that notification is going to show up in a blue box in the bottom right-hand corner of this page. We'll get a notification that says our upload is complete. And there it is. You will also get a notification in your inbox here at the top of the page. When you click on that inbox, you'll see today's date, you'll see the time, and you'll see the source. It'll say customer notes import. So those are two ways that you'll know that your import was successful. And if you want to double check, because maybe you're like, this is my first time, or Lockstep might have had an error, or maybe your computer froze while you were doing it. Whatever happened, you can always go into your customer's account and you can check to see where those notes officially uploaded. So we'll come up here to our search box, type in our customer's bill to code, and hit enter. From this list, we'll select which one we did, and we did notes for a West account. And then once we scroll down to the activities portion of this customer's account, here we'll see our activity issue, which we made promise to pay. The note that we put here, payment process. So we can see all of our notes are now attached to our customer's account. And if you wanted to go any deeper and further check, when you click on your activity issue and scroll up, you'll see our notes again here. Promise to pay was our issue. We have our note for the day. And if we click transactions, we can even see that pro number that this note was attached to, which matches our pro number here, because I just clicked the first one from our list that we pulled from our customer statement. So that in a nutshell is our simple import sheet. Like I stated earlier, it's best for you to use that simple import sheet when you're just making small notes like this. It works best for those large accounts that you don't really need to mark follow-up dates for or note things as disputed, but you do want to make sure you're having notes in there so that your supervisors and team members and management can see that you are working the account and keeping updated notes. The complex import allows you to set follow-up dates for your invoices. So on our simple import sheet, stopped here right after the Notes tab. Our complex import sheet adds on a couple of more columns. So our first three columns we get on our complex import sheet would be to do. This column is asking, would you like to schedule a follow-up? If yes, you would enter a Y. If no, you would enter N. Our next column, to do date. This is the date that you would like to follow up. Keep in mind, even if you do not want to schedule a follow-up date, you must enter a date in the to-do date column. After entering in your to-do date, our last column here is to-do description. You can enter a note to remind yourself what you're following up on. For example, check the ARVB, or email customer, or call customer, or escalate to management. The to do description is for you, and it's just a reminder as to what you need to follow up on for that invoice. The complex import has one final feature, and that is the ability to tag an invoice as disputed. So, in our last three columns is where you would enter in your dispute information. So, our first column, in dispute, YN, is asking, is this invoice being disputed? Y for yes, N for no. Our next column is the dispute code. The dispute code needs to be picked from the reason codes below. If you do not enter one of these reason codes under your dispute code, your import will fail. So please always refer to your list of reason codes when you're making your dispute codes. And then our last column is dispute note. This column you can freestyle. You can put a note here that helps you remember and understand what is being disputed here. If you don't have a dispute note, you can leave this column blank. The great thing about using our dispute codes is once you tag an invoice as disputed, that customer will stop receiving notifications. So if your customer has already told you that this is a duplicate charge, or they're disputing a charge, or they've taken a customer deduction, or even a promise to pay, you want to be sure that you're tagging those invoices in Lockstep is disputed by either using your import or manually doing it by creating an activity. Doing so will stop your customer from receiving those automated emails requesting payment. We don't want to keep nagging our customers about balances due if they've already told us why they're not paying. So, anytime your customer gives you an update on your statement or via email or however you're communicating, please be sure that you're coming into Lockstep and updating your dispute code to reflect those notes. Complex import sheet allows us to provide a little bit more details than what we saw on our simple import sheet. So as you can see here at the beginning of the complex import sheet, the details are just like the simple sheet. We're putting in our company ID, our bill to code for our customer, our activity date, a task description, our invoice list, and our notes. From G through L is what makes the complex import different. So our column G is to do. This is asking, do we have a to do for this invoice? And our to do is a follow up. So basically, do you want Lockstep to schedule a follow up? You would enter Y for yes or N for no. And then if you put anything in this to do column, whether it's an N or a Y, you must complete a to do date. If you do not put a date in that to do date column, your import sheet will fail and it will not upload. So always keep in mind whether or not you want the system to schedule a follow up date, you still must include a date in your to do date column. But keep in mind if you put no under to do, the system won't schedule the follow up. You'll only schedule the follow up if you put yes, but you still have to put that to do date. The next column is to do description. What are you wanting to do with this follow up? Are you following up a reminder to call the customer? Are you following up a reminder to check with your supervisor? Or are you making a reminder to check the ARVB? This is where you could put a note saying what you want to do when you get this follow up activity in Lockstep. Our next column is saying in dispute YN. This is Lockstep asking, is this invoice being disputed? Yes or no? If the invoice is being disputed, you can put Y for yes. If the invoice is not being disputed, you could put N for no. Once you put the invoice as dispute, you would have to go back to your reason codes that are provided. They're on the shared drive and they're also in the Lockstep group chat files. And you have to use a designated list of those reason codes. You cannot freestyle this column. You must use one of those designated reason codes, or again, your import sheet will fail and you'll have to come back and make corrections. And then our last column is dispute note. Dispute note is your own note. You can list whatever you want here. You can list the reason as it's being disputed, or you can leave it blank. So we're going to start plugging in our information from our customer statement onto our complex import sheet. So we'll start with copying all of these invoices that are having some disputes with their balances. So we've copied them and we will go ahead and paste them under our invoice list. Remember to paste values only. Then we'll go back and we're going to copy in the reason that our customer has made these deductions into our notes. So now that we have our invoice list and our notes for the deduction, I'm going to go ahead and plug in our company ID and all this other information to the left of our invoice list. So this is a West account. So we're putting WST. If it were an Evans account, we would put EVA. We're going to enter in our customer's bill to code. Our activity date is today's date. In our task description, I'm going to put customer deductions. And this information is the same for all of these loads. So I'm going to track down that information and go ahead and paste in our activity date. So next, this is where we start entering in the complex portion of our import sheet. Because you can see here, everything here was just the same as our simple import. Now this is when we start letting Lockstep know if we want to start scheduling follow-ups or mark some of these invoices as disputed. So this first one, I don't want to schedule a follow-up date for it. So I'm going to put in, but since I'm using the complex import sheet, this column cannot be left blank. I still will need to enter a date. So I'm just going to put 11/11/24 because that's the date I'm going to use for the rest of my follow-ups on this sheet. And since I'm not scheduling a follow-up, I do not need a task description. And I am going to say no for dispute. For the rest of these, I want to go ahead and schedule follow-ups and mark them as disputed. So I'll put yes, I want to follow up. I'm going to put a week from today. And my note will be check the ARVB because these are customer deductions due to an agent's service failure. So these will go on the board for them to advise how to deduct. I'm going to mark these as disputed. So I'll put yes. The dispute code will be customer deductions because these were invoices that were paid in full. And then the customers came back and made deductions due to service failures. In my dispute note, I will just put agent deductions. And since these are all the same, I'm going to copy it and then paste it for all of those. That way I don't have to retype it again or worry about dragging down and having the wrong date here. So we have marked majority of them as disputed and created follow-ups, except for this first one, because I just want you guys to be able to see the difference of what it will look like when you put no but still have to do a follow-up date, or when you put yes and you give the follow-up date in Lockstep. So we have all our information entered, as you can see here, and I'll try to open it up so nothing is really missing. Make it a little smaller for you to see. We're going to click File, Save As. I'm saving it on my PC, putting today's date, and changing my file type to a CSV and saving. And I did a practice one earlier, so I'm just replacing that one. And now we're ready to upload. So we're in Lockstep, and since we have already saved our import in our Favorites tab, we'll click Favorites, Import, and select our file. So here is an example if an import fails. Our import button didn't turn purple, so we know somewhere there's a mistake. Somewhere there's an error on this sheet, and we have to figure out what happened. So we can see that our status says failed. So we can come down and click this drop down arrow to expand, and we can see here it said failed. Reason code not found. And it says that for all of these here. So now we have to go back here and figure out what happened. What was the reason code? And then you're like, oh, it's customer deduction, not customer deductions. So anything that small can kick out your import sheet. So now once we come back, we've corrected our reason code. We're going to save it. We'll come back into Lockstep, go back into select, click on our corrected file and open it. And now it's ready. All of our statuses have validated and our import button has turned purple. So now we're safe to go ahead and import this sheet. Now we just wait for our notification in the bottom right hand corner and it's all done. So now let's go ahead and check those activities that we created. So I'm going to search for that customer's account. And once it loads, we're going to scroll down to activities. And right here in our activity issue, we can see all the notes that we just imported into Lockstep. And you can see here, this first one, remember on our import sheet, I noted that I did not want to schedule a follow-up for this invoice here, the EPA invoice. And when I go into Lockstep, it's also the first one on our list, and you can see there's no follow-up date here because I didn't select one. Even when you go into that issue, you can click and see that there's no scheduled follow-up. But if I scroll back down to those previous activities where I did schedule a follow-up, we can see the follow-up date is marked. We have a disputed invoice, and the invoice was tagged as disputed. So let's go in and check out all those notes that we made on that spreadsheet. So we can see that we made the issue, customer deductions. We have our note as to why it was being disputed. We can see that our follow-up box is now checked because just like we said here, we want to schedule a follow-up for this invoice. Then if we come into transactions, we can see here that this invoice was tagged as disputed. We have our reason code here, which was a customer deduction, and it tells us which invoice was being deducted. And if I click on this invoice, another pop-up will open up and I can see my note that this is an agent deduction. And we got all that information just by filling out these columns here on our import sheet. So have you ever received a statement back from your customer and they were disputing 15 invoices for the same reason, or gave you a long list of promise to pays that you wanted to mark into Lockstep, but didn't want it to create multiple activities to do so? Well, then creating one activity for multiple pros will become your new best friend. To make one activity for multiple pros, we must add a pipe between each pro number, as shown below. By adding a pipe to our invoice list, we're able to create one activity for multiple invoices at one time. That'll stop you from having to mark complete 100 promise to pays or mark complete 50 chassis disputes. You can put them all on one activity and upload them into your Lockstep notes at one time. Start off by downloading or opening a blank copy of the complex import sheet. Enter the company code, EVA for Evans or WST for West Accounts. Enter in your customer's ID, which is the bill to code. your activity date, which should be the date that you're uploading your import sheet, and complete your task description. Last, we're going to insert our pipe into the invoice list. So we'll type in our formula text join. So now we know we need a pipe, but how do we actually go about getting that pipe added onto our invoice list? To add a pipe, we're going to use the text join formula. The text join formula concatenates a list or range of text strings using a delimiter. Our delimiter is a character or string to insert between each text item. So in our case, the delimiter will be the pipe. Next, the function argument will ask, do we want to ignore the empty cells? And since we don't care about the empty cells, we'll enter true in this field. And last, text one. For text one, we will select our list of pros from our statement that we wish to add the pipe between. We are going to use the complex import sheet to add our customer's promise to pay status for all of these invoices. But since there's so many on this statement, as you can see, we're probably over 100 invoices where they have given us a payment status. We're going to add a pipe on our invoice list on our complex import so that we can create one activity in Lockstep instead of creating multiple activities for each of these promise to pays. And because this account is a best practice account, we want to notate that we have promise to pay details so that our customer can stop receiving past due notifications. So it's very important if you have a best practice account or an agent risk account that are sending out automated emails to your customer about past due invoices. Once you receive payment status on those past dues, be sure to go ahead and notate that in Lockstep so that customer will stop getting those emails. As we know how annoying it could be if you keep getting reminders on something that you've already addressed. So always be sure to take that time to update those notes in Lockstep, and you can use your complex import to do that. So that's what we're going to do is add a pipe so that way we can create one activity for all of these invoices. So that's where we'll start. On our complex import sheet, we want to add in the text join formula in the invoice list. So we'll click in that blank box. We'll go to formulas and then to text. From here, we're going to scroll down and select text join. And then we'll begin to enter in our argument. So first, we're going to start with the delimiter. Our delimiter is where we want to insert our pipe. So we'll put quotation mark, we'll insert the pipe, and then we'll close the quotations. Our next field is asking, do we want to ignore the empty cells? Yes, we do. So we're going to put true into this box. Next is text one. This is where we're going to insert our list of pros where we need to add in that pipe. So we're going to go back to our customer statement and we're going to select all the pros that are marked with payment details. So I'm going to click in the first one and we're going to use our keyboard shortcut again to copy all of these pros in this list. So we're going to hold down Control Shift and press the down arrow. So now we have copied in all of our pros. We inserted our pipe. Our argument is true to ignore our empty cells. We can press OK. So now once we go back to that complex import sheet, you can now see that we've added a pipe between each and every pro number that was listed on our customer statement. So now that we have our invoice list, we can go ahead and start completing the rest of our information. This is an Evans account, so the company ID will be EVA. We will enter in our customer's bill to code. Our activity day is today, so that's 11/5. Our task description will be promise to pay. We already have our invoice list with our pipe added. So next we'll go to notes. And this is where I will copy and paste in the customer's notes. Always remember when you're going back to your import sheet to right click and paste values only. Oops. And I only needed that once. Sorry about that. Because we added a pipe, we don't need the whole list. For to do, we're going to put no because we don't need to schedule a follow-up for this. So we're putting in for no, but we still have to put a follow-up date. So I'm just going to use 11/11. We don't have a to-do description because we're not scheduling a follow-up, but we are going to mark this as disputed. So we're putting yes. And the reason why we're marking it as disputed because we want our customer to stop receiving past due notifications and requests for payments. Since they've already told us they've made a payment, we want to stop those emails. So we're going to mark it as disputed, and our dispute code will be promise to pay. And we don't have a dispute note because we already have a note here with their payment details. You could put that same information there if you like, or you can leave your dispute note blank. So we have all our information completed. We have our company ID, the bill to code for our customer, today's date. Our task description is promise to pay. We've added a pipe to our invoice list, so we were able to create one activity for multiple invoices. We have our note. We didn't schedule a follow-up date, but we did mark it dispute. So if we have everything here. It looks fine. We're going to go ahead and save this so we can go ahead and import our notes. So now we're back into Lockstep, and because we've already saved our import page under our favorites, we can get there quickly. We'll select, find our file, click open, and if there are no issues on this sheet, our import button will turn purple. Everything is validated. We are ready to import. Once it's complete, we'll get an alert at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So our import is complete. We can type in our customer's bill to code at the top and head to their account so we can check out that activity we just created. Windmill, windmill. Okay. So we're scrolling down to activities. And now you can see we have one activity, promise to pay. We have our activity note here. Once we click into that activity, we can see the tagged amount that is scheduled to be paid on that check. You can see that a schedule follow-up was not scheduled because our box is not blue here. So putting in the box did work. And if we click on transactions, we can see every invoice that we tagged to be promised to pay. And so now instead of having 539 items down here on our activity list, we just have one line item that gives a promise to pay for over 500 invoices. And we were able to do that because we added a pipe to our invoice list. Here are a few tips to help your note management in Lockstep easier. Importing your notes on a regular basis ensures that your account has been updated with the most recent invoice status. It also helps you to easily prepare for your weekly DSO meetings and other account reviews. Be sure that you're tagging expected payment and disputed invoices. By tagging an invoice as promised to pay or noting dispute reason for short pays on past dues will stop customers from receiving automated emails for those invoices, and it will also give your supervisor and members of management an idea of what's going on with those invoices without having to stop and ask you to look it up. Use the follow-up dates. Use the follow-up function to set reminders to contact customers and or to check the ARVB. And last, remember, your task descriptions on your import sheets can be customized. Create your own task descriptions and be consistent with the wording. This will allow you to easily filter your activity issues when working in Lockstep. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this information useful. If you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to assist. Also, make sure after you watch this webinar that you click the link in the description to take the quiz. Thank you again and have a great day.